G'day. If you're a beginner at drawing, well, welcome to a great journey ahead. But like most journeys, it's most helpful to start with having an idea of what destination we want to get to. And if you don't know when you start drawing, you'll certainly find out very soon that the possibilities, the way we draw, what we draw with, and so forth, are almost endless. And in the excitement of this new activity and all of these new possibilities, it's easy to get distracted and start to jump from area to area. From drawing with pencils, from drawing with colour, from drawing with charcoal to drawing with ink, maybe dabbling with some watercolour. And we can jump from one to another as we get ideas or inspiration, or we see something that we'd like to do. But at the start of our drawing journey, this can mean that we just end up bouncing all over the place and going nowhere. The most helpful thing is to have a sense when we start of where do I want to end up with my drawing? What do I want to get better at? Do I want to be able to draw in pencil or in charcoal or in pen? Do I want to be using colour or hatching lines or black and white values? Do I want to draw animals, architecture, landscapes, portraits? Because I can't learn all there is to learn about all these different things all at once. From a learning point of view, starting more narrow and going deeper in that narrow area, and by deeper I mean improving, does far more for my skill development than to jump from one area to another and stay shallow in all of those areas. Then all that I've learnt to do is to stay shallow. But if I learn to develop skills in one area, say it's freehand drawing with ink, there is something about the skills that we learn in that area that ends up being applicable to other areas. And it's not just what I draw and what I draw with, but it's also the method I use for my drawing. If I want to be able to draw freehand in ink without any pencil underlining, then that's what I should start doing. It's a mistake to start with pencil if I want to end up with pen thinking it's an easy transition. The skills, the techniques are different. The approach is very different when we can erase or can't erase our lines. So if I want to end up being accomplished in drawing freehand with ink, drawing at the start with pencil is only going to slow me down. Just as tracing is going to slow me down if I want to be able to draw freehand in the near future, if that's the skill I'm working towards. Because tracing develops other skills. It develops the skill of running a line over the top of another line. That's not a problem if that's what I want to do. But I need to think, where do I want to end up? And similarly, drawing from the drawings of other artists, copying the drawings of other artists, while it might be more challenging than tracing in many ways, still doesn't give me the skills I need, doesn't develop the thought processes that I need to develop to be able to draw my own original drawings freehand. Instead, I develop the skills of copying. So I need to have a sense of where I want to end up, and then I can design what I do and how I do it to get there, achieving all the things on the way that I'm wanting to achieve. My second point is, don't get carried away with enthusiasm and start to tackle the sort of subjects that possibly made you want to learn to draw them in the first place. They almost certainly are not a helpful place to start. If there's a particular subject that you want to draw, by all means, use that subject for your drawing. But otherwise, start simply. Start simply and do well. Because we're not really ready to move on to the next level if we haven't achieved at the level we're at. A simple subject means there are less factors, less techniques that we have to juggle all at once in our mind and bring together to have work out on the paper. With less distraction in our head, less forward planning that we have to do as we put the pen on the paper, it's easier to focus on the things that we need to focus at that point for those things. And it's easier to do well, which is great from a learning point of view. It's also great just from an encouragement point of view as well. I have a few little phrases that I have in my head that go round and round on occasion that I find very helpful in directing my art practice and what I choose to do and the way I choose to do it in order to continue improving. And one of them is we get better whatever we practice doing. And this really flows on from my last point about staying with a subject we can do well at. Because if we don't, if we're continually pushing ourselves to a standard of complexity that goes beyond our skill level, that we can't actually achieve, what I learned to do is to draw badly over and over and over again. I do lots and lots of drawings that have a lot of problems. And what can happen over time is that my ability to see those problems can disappear, because I get so used to seeing that that's how a drawing of this subject looks, that it starts to look what I expect to see, and therefore I feel it's correct. This is where having a friend who's not worried about offending us is great, where we can get some outside opinion as to, does everything work here, or is there something not quite right? The third point, and I know that most of you with this one are going to go, oh yeah, no, I do that, that's not a problem. But I can almost certainly guarantee it is a problem, is that we need to understand that our normal levels of observation of objects for most things is inadequate for being able to draw them accurately. We all need to observe more carefully. I actually think the truth is that the problems with most drawings that we would more naturally put down to bad drawing techniques, that we haven't learned how to actually put the lines on the paper properly somehow yet, actually come from not having observed what we need to see in the way we need to see it to be able to capture the accuracy and the effect of that object in our drawing. Not observing carefully is like having both arms tied behind our back when we start drawing. And particularly with objects with which we're familiar, it's easy to assume that we've seen it adequately, but it's not assumption, it's observation we need to do. If you've ever done the exercise of drawing an upside down drawing from an upside down reference, then you'll understand what I'm saying, because doing this forces us to pay so much more attention to what we're drawing, to observe so much more carefully. And it's always amazing when we turn our drawing up the right way, just how much better it is than we expected it to be. Why? Because the upside down drawing forced me to observe it more carefully. And that's the difference more careful observation will make in your drawings. Now, this next point may sound a bit mean, but if I'm beginning to learn to draw, it's important that I realize that what's happening is I'm learning to draw. I'm not producing artworks. I find the comparison with learning the piano is very helpful. Nobody sits down to learn the piano and thinks at the end of their first or second or third or fourth or fifth session, they're going to be playing a performance for the neighbours to come round and applaud. No, they know that they have started a process of learning. And it is exactly the same when we learn to draw. Now, I'm not saying that what we draw is no good. I'm not saying that we can't draw things that, at the very least, we're impressed with, and maybe even the people around us. I'm not commenting on the standard of the drawing so much as the nature of the drawing. This is something I am doing while I am learning and honing, improving my observation skills. We can get focused on the results way too early, but learning is a process, and we can do that process more effectively and more efficiently if we give it some structure in accordance with points such as these. The other problem with thinking I'm producing an artwork, besides the fact that we probably just don't even have the skills at this point, is that depending on my personality, it can really inhibit me. I can start to feel afraid of making a mistake because I don't want to spoil the artwork, particularly if I'm halfway through and it's going better than I expected. It can make me scared to continue. If I see this drawing as an exercise, a learning experience, I'm not even thinking this is something that has to be frame-worthy at the end, then I'm so much freer to take risks, to try things, to make mistakes and then to learn from them. It takes such a lot of pressure off me if I think I'm learning to draw, what I'm doing are learning to draw exercises. And if some of them look like artworks, well, we'll just call that coincidence right now, and we won't let it distract us from the learning journey, the learning process that I'm on. This next point is particularly important in this self-taught day and age, where we choose our teaching materials often from YouTube videos. And that's, I need to understand that if that's me, then I am my teacher. It's not the voice on the video in the end who's my teacher, but I am my own teacher. So I don't just do the work, I have to set the work. So I have to choose what videos I watch, and I hope that some of the points we've talked about so far will give some idea of what may be the more helpful videos to watch. That as you get a clearer idea of where you want to end up, you can make better choices about videos that might get you there, ones that are well suited to either your level of thinking and or your level of drawing, ones that will progress your drawing skills bit by bit. But not just as my own teacher do I need to organise my curriculum, organise my drawing course, but also, and I think this really is the more important point, I need to mark my own work. And if I think back to the point of not accepting mistakes, I have to be able to recognise when I have made them, or at least when I've made some of them. So when I have finished a drawing, I need to look at it, I need to critique it. Now, critique has the sense of being critical, but it's critical in a positive sense. It's finding the things that will give me focus, give me direction for my next drawing. There is nothing to be afraid of in making mistakes or admitting mistakes, because recognizing mistakes, understanding our mistakes, is the way we move past that. But we have to mark our work to do that. And we've rolled into our next point with that, which is that if we can find errors in our drawings, it gives us a focus. So there is not anything to be afraid of. So we need to get rid of the thinking, the mindset that somehow to be finding things that aren't right is to be unhelpfully negative. Who I am is not my drawing, and I recognize that I'm still improving my skills at whatever stage in my drawing journey I'm on. Now, this next point is that frequent drawing sessions, frequent but shorter, generally improves our learning speed than longer sessions less frequently. I'm not saying we treat our drawings with any less seriousness or attention or effort, but particularly at the start, drawing smaller sized drawings in faster time periods, and I think it is very helpful to set ourselves a time limit for a drawing, lets us move from drawing to drawing quickly. And it's the moving from drawing to drawing after we've evaluated, after we've critiqued our drawing, we've worked out what do I need to change to improve where I'm wanting to go with my drawing from the last one. And then I can do that maybe in the same drawing session, or I can do it the next day because it's only 20 minutes. And even if I have an hour to spare, it can be more helpful to do 3. I can learn more doing 3 20-minute drawings than a 60-minute drawing. Because if I haven't developed adequate skills yet, in effect what I'm going to be doing is taking 60 minutes to do a drawing with some issues, rather than 20 minutes to do a drawing with some issues, but then to immediately do a second drawing that now has less issues, and then a third drawing that has almost no issues. And let's face it, spending an hour or 2 hours or 2 3-hour drawing sessions with a week between them and ending up with a drawing that has problems is not going to encourage us on our drawing journey either. For this next point, it's helpful to think back to learning the piano. When we start to learn the piano, we don't do it by putting a score of music in the front for a Mozart concerto and trying to work out how to play it. As I said earlier, starting with doing simple subjects that we have a chance of doing better is a very helpful part of a learning process. But as well as that, there is also not doing drawings at all, but doing drawing exercises. So exactly what sort of exercises I do might depend on what subjects I want to be able to draw. But if I enjoy drawing architecture as I do, then learning to do some nice, confident, brisk, straight lines is a really important skill to develop. And there are exercises we can do that help us learn how to do that in the most effective way. I think about 3 videos at least on how to draw straight lines, and exercises that we can do to sit there and just reinforce that skill. spending 10 minutes on 3 occasions close together doing those exercises can mean that when I do now sit down to do a drawing, even a simple one, I have developed that skill to a far greater degree with far more practice than I would have got just using that skill in drawings. It is a real time saver. When we're just focusing tightly on a particular skill, I can go a lot further, a lot more quickly without the overhead of having to do the whole drawing. Now, I've talked in several points about the importance of being able to see and to recognize errors. Now, very helpful is to get a second set of eyes to come and tell us, does anything look not quite right? Even when people can't tell us exactly what's wrong, usually they still have a sense, if it's a common everyday subject that we look at a lot, such as a face, there is this built up knowledge that the brain gets as to what to expect. And if our drawing doesn't deliver what it was expecting, that's probably because there's something not quite right in our drawing. So even if they can't say why, having a friend who can nicely say that something's not quite right is very helpful as our own teachers to work out what we need to concentrate on. If we don't have a friend to hand, there are 3 things we can do to, in a sense, get a fresh set of eyes. If I made some fundamental mistakes, I've now looked at those lines in the wrong places for maybe an hour or 2 hours or more, and I've got used to seeing them there, so they don't look wrong to me because I've seen them where they are so often. But to get a fresh look, one of the ways I do this is to simply look down through the camera and to see the drawing condensed to a very small size. That often makes things that aren't right, especially perspective angles, a lot more obvious. I can do the same thing by taking my drawing into the bathroom and holding it up against the mirror. That flipping it makes it look just unfamiliar enough that I'm able to recognize that something's not quite right. And thirdly, a really important time is the next day. You've been disconnected from seeing it and thinking about it for some time. That first glance that we get is, I find, really important to give us a sense of, is this right? Is this working? G'day, I'm Stephen Travers. Look, I hope you have found this helpful. If you're at the beginning of your drawing journey, or maybe you've been there for a bit, but you feel like you've been circling around in very unhelpful circles and have felt that you've not been able to break out of what's not proving to be a very productive routine, then I hope these 10 points give you the breakout that you're wanting and start to really fast track you to where you want to end up, drawing the sorts of things you want to be able to draw in the way you want to draw them, using the materials that you want to be able to learn to use. But look, whatever you draw, however you draw it, and however you think it turns out, make sure you have fun. I'll see you next time. Bye.